Well, hi, this is Jay Arthur, author of Lean Six Sigma Demystified, Lean Six Sigma for Hospitals, and the QI Macros. Now, when I first took my quality training back in 1990, it was a week long, right? And now green belt trainings are 2 weeks and black belts are 4 weeks. And it seems like we're teaching people a lot of things that they may or may not need to know to actually solve problems. Do you need to know everything there is to know about electrical engineering to turn on a light bulb? No. Do you need to know everything there is to know about mechanical engineering to start your car? No. All right? I think that we're trying to teach people the equivalent of, make them a statistician to turn them into somebody who can actually do Six Sigma. Do they need that to actually solve problems? Well, maybe at the far end of high-end manufacturing, but everybody else, no. And most of the world is a service business. Now, when I first started teaching Six Sigma, right, we all had these things where you had to learn how to choose a control chart, and you had to know whether it was variable or attribute, and then how many samples, and was it varying or was it whatever. And back in 2006, I'd been kind of dipped in this for the whole time. So from 1997 till 2006, I'd been trying to teach people that. And I found that people had a hard time learning decision trees, how to choose the right chart. But then in the back of my mind, I got this idea. Well, since I asked people to select data before they click a button to do a chart, I could actually analyze what data they've selected and choose the right chart for them. That's when the control chart wizard was born. So I don't teach people choosing control charts anymore. I just have them select data, click on the control chart wizard, boom, they're good, they're going. That cut a couple hours out of the whole training process. And then I did the same thing with statistics, the stat wizard, right? All the rules about what do you do? No, just select some data, click on the stat wizard, and it'll go figure out if it's normal, non-normal. It'll run whatever tests it thinks it should run, given what data you've given it. Now, no other software does this, right? What am I trying to do? I'm trying to take people from 0 to hero in the shortest time possible. And then I found people were hesitating to learn how to use pivot tables, so I created a pivot table wizard. In the pivot table wizard, you could select up to 4 column headings and click the pivot table wizard, and it would push out a pivot table of summarized data. And I found way too many people were looking through their data and doing a little count of how many times a certain word or phrase occurred in this big column of data, going, do you know that pivot tables will do that for it automatically? No, right? So the pivot table wizard collapsed people's ability to use pivot tables. And according to Microsoft, only about 7% of things out there actually have a pivot table in them, and I'm pretty sure those were generated by less than 1% of the 650 million users. And then in 2016 and 17, I started thinking about, well, if I can automate all of those things, what have I been doing to do analysis? Well, first I do a pivot table, and then I turn that into a control chart showing performance over time. It might be denied claims in a hospital. It might be scrap rate. It might be something having to do with what's going on in terms of service order errors or whatever it is. It doesn't matter what the defect or variation is. I can go create a control chart of that after I've pivoted and summarized all the data. And then once I did that, then I would start going through and creating Pareto charts, column by column, and starting to figure out, can I break that down into a lower level Pareto chart? And if I could break it down into a lower level Pareto chart, would that one actually be something that we could do an improvement project off of? And I thought, well, if we have the QI macros, why can't it go look at a whole raw data set that could be pivoted and turn that into an entire improvement project? And in January of 2017, I got that fully automated. And now all you have to do is create some data that shows the when, where, what, why, how, who, how much of each type of defect, mistake, and error. And guess what? The data mining wizard will create an entire improvement project from that, looking at it from every viewpoint, which is what I used to have to do manually. And it would take me 3 days, 4 days Sometimes I could do an hour, sometimes it took me days, depending on how big the data set was. Now, what does that do? That makes it possible for people to create an entire improvement project in a matter of seconds. You know, I just did a demonstration for a healthcare company, and the woman says, you just did in seconds what takes me 2 hours a week. I said, well, yeah, that's what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to get out of the business of teaching people things they don't need to know. We want the software to do it for you, right? So can you collapse your training? You know, do they need to know central tendency? No, they do not. I disagree. You don't have to know the underpinnings. What you need to know is, what are the patterns, right? Here's my center line on the control chart. Do I want to move it up or down? Do we want to, and we just want to reduce variation. That's all you need to know. Pareto charts, what's the big bar? You don't need to know everything there is to know about statistics to solve problems using Six Sigma. And I'm sure this offends people that have spent weeks and months in class, but you don't need to know that to solve problems using the tools, especially if you have the QI macros, because they collapse that learning curve. Now, as you do that, they'll start to pick up the pattern that is embedded in the software, right? Much better than I can teach it. And out of that comes the ability to start to get more detail, to drill down and learn more about it if you want to, but you do not have to. So that's my goal in life, is to get it to the point where a no belt can go solve major problems using data. All right? I'm Jay Arthur. That's my improvement insight for this week.